This week, the world was privileged to watch two intellectual giants square off on the debate stage to address issues that everyday Americans care about. Kitchen table issues like the size of Donald Trump's rallies and the dietary habits of Haitian immigrants in Ohio. In a country that once pitted Thomas Jefferson and John Adams against each other for the role of president, America should be embarrassed to have allowed our options to be whittled down to a man who has never read a book and a woman who got to the top working off her knees. I have never looked to politicians for morality, and it's a mistake that other people do. But I have always expected our politicians to know more than the average high schooler, and unfortunately, both these candidates are demonstrating nothing but failure on that front. I'll be voting for policy instead of personality, a strategy that I would encourage everyone else to adopt as well, because on policy, the Democratic Party is responsible for open borders, castrating minors, and the worst inflationary spiral we have seen in a lifetime. So it really makes voting for the Republican a little easier. I'm Tyler Chrestman. Welcome to the Chrestman Conversation. Okay, hello everyone. Today we are going to be talking about the debate. It's what's on everyone's mind this week. Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, the throwdown, the showdown, whatever you want to call it. And I have a lot of thoughts. I guess initially, my first thought is that it was just lackluster. There was nothing exciting that happened. There's no real big takeaways. I don't think it moved the needle very much. It really was just not a great night for either person, which depending on what camp you're in is exactly what you wanted. If you're Kamala Harris, you just want to get through it. That's what you want. That was her goal going in. Don't make any big gaffes. Don't look like a fool. Try and get Donald Trump angry so he'll go off script, or maybe have a moment like you did against Mike Pence where you get to shush him. Mr. President, or Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking, whatever she said. Nonsense. That's what she wanted. She wanted a moment. No candidate had a moment, though. In every debate that you can think of that you remember a moment. You don't remember the debate. You don't remember the 90 minutes of Biden versus Trump. What you remember is the time when Donald Trump looked at the camera and said, I don't know what he just said. He doesn't know what he just said, blah, blah, blah. That's what you remember. You remember a moment. There's a moment. There wasn't a moment in this debate where either person should be able to just clip it, and that's it. It just summarizes what's going on, and it's a moment that just shows I'm better. They didn't have that. Neither one did. So my initial thought really is that it's just not a great night for either person. It was a missed opportunity for both. The reality is, and I don't mean to say this with ego. I'm not trying to say this because I would consider myself some great debater, but I really feel like if you just plucked me down in either role, it would be the other person on the other end, whoever it is, whether it's Kamala Harris, whether it's Donald Trump, that person is so easy to debate. They are not well-equipped debaters. Donald Trump has some debate skill, but it's not in the way that we would traditionally think. It's not because he understands the issues on a deep intellectual level and he can give you a rationale for all of his policy positions. He doesn't have the depth of recall where he's saying, well, because of the armistice in 1919, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't. No, that's not why he's a good debater. He's a good debater because he thinks on his feet. He's confrontational by nature, and he's funny. And that makes him a good debater because he's able to narrow down these moments in debates to a little soundbite that sounds good, and he's able to offset his opponent. He's able to put his opponent on the back foot because he's an attack dog, and he will attack. And a lot of people don't deal with that very well. He's got some savage debate moments because he's that guy. He didn't have that last night, or he didn't have it this week. It was 2 nights ago, but he didn't have it when he needed it. And he needed it because this was an opportunity for him. This was an opportunity for Donald. What are you doing? Are you out of your damn mind? Anyone see this cat just jumping up on my desk? Get down here. What are you doing? It was an opportunity for him as a candidate to really put Kamala Harris in a box and demonstrate that she knows nothing. And he just couldn't do it. And for Kamala Harris, it was the same thing. You had to demonstrate that Donald Trump, it's not that he didn't know anything. That wouldn't be her goal. Her goal was to make him just appear as though he was unfit to be president. she was a little more successful, I think, in her goal than he was in his goal, which is unfortunate. Donald Trump had an opportunity because Kamala Harris did okay. She did okay, but it wasn't great. But Donald Trump had an opportunity and he missed. And that's all there is. That's all you can say about his performance. It was no A+ performance. It was a B, C+, maybe. And it's not that Kamala Harris had an A+. She also had a B or a C+. But what you wanted was Donald Trump to have an A or an A+ performance against her B or C performance and really show the contrast in their abilities, and he just didn't do it. Instead, he took the bait. He allowed himself to get drawn into stupid shit that he didn't need to talk about. She makes a joke about his crowd size, and he could have left it alone and said his first line, which is that, listen, she's saying people, I wish I had a good Trump impression. I really do. I would bust it out for you guys all the time. Instead you get my mediocre Trump. He said, listen, she says people leave my rallies. No one goes to her rallies. And you should have left it there. That would have been funny. Instead, he talked about it for a minute and a half or 2 minutes, whatever it was. He talked about it for entirely too long. He got obsessed. My rallies are great. They're the best in history. No one's ever left my rally. People are still at my rallies from years ago. They've never left the stadium because my rallies are the best and blah, blah, blah. No one cares. No one cares. I'm a little sick. Sorry about that. You hear a cough and I don't manage to mute myself, then I apologize. But I'm a little sick. This is Michael Jordan in his flu game right now. I'm soldiering through. He got drawn into stuff like this, Donald Trump. He got drawn into arguments like this for no reason. There's no reason to do it. He took the bait on every line she laid down. Anytime she made a little dig or a little quip, he got off track. He's talking about nonsense. It did not help him at all. And on the reverse side of that, she did okay. She said nothing of substance. She said nothing on policy. She said zero on anything that has any relevance to what she would do. But she stayed on message, and those empty platitudes, these words of nothing, this hollow, meaningless pap that she puts out of her face hole, it works because people don't actually care about the issues. That's the unfortunate thing about American politics. People don't vote based on the issues they care about. They vote based on the candidate, which is the worst way to vote. You don't vote based on I like the guy or I like the girl. That is a stupid way to cast your vote. You look at their policies. You say, what do they want to do? Will this make the country better? Will it make it worse? Well, up until 2 or 3 days ago, she didn't even have policies listed on her website. I know we've talked about this before. It is nonsense. She's not running on anything. She's running on joy. Oh, this is the campaign of joy. You know what? Every Kamala Harris speech can be summed up like this. She'll say meaningless nonsense like, we're going to move forward, not backwards, up, not down, left, not right. We're going to unite and not divide, and we're going to come together and not apart. Nonsense. Nothing. It tells you nothing about what she wants to do. All it does is say, oh, look at that. A message of hope. Isn't that great? Kamala Harris, she's so positive. She wants to unite, not divide. That's because Donald Trump wants to divide, not unite. Donald Trump wants to go back, not forward. No, this is stupid. This is nonsense. What does it have to do with anything? This is all she runs on. It is all she has to offer. All she has to offer is meaningless drivel. That's it. Because she has no ideas. She has no accomplishments. So what does she run on? She runs on fluff. That's all she can do, because when she has to talk about ideas, it turns out all her ideas are bad. When she has to run on her record, it turns out her record is bad. So instead, she gets to say, well, I'm Kamala. I'm a black woman. Vote for me. And people will do it. And that's sad. It's a sad state of American politics. People will do it. So on her end, it's effective because you don't have to say anything. She could very legitimately wind up as president of the United States based on no accomplishments. I had some person in one of my comments, I made this point on Facebook, and I had a person I said, what Kamala Harris ever do? And then I had someone post this picture. It was a 20, 30 point bullet point thing of all the things she did. The first 3 things on the list where she spent hundreds of millions of dollars fighting climate change. She was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act. She did all these things. She spent all this money. And I just said the entirety of the top of these accomplishments could be summarized as she spent an ungodly amount of money and created the worst inflation in 40 years. That's her accomplishment. She was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, as if you want to brag about that. You know what the Inflation Reduction Act did? It's the most ironically named bill to pass Congress in years. It created inflation. It spent hundreds of millions of dollars to fight inflation? No, on climate change, because they couldn't pass the Green New Deal, because the Green New Deal is unpopular. So instead they passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which did a terrible job of fighting inflation, a great job of causing further inflation, and spent hundreds of millions of dollars on green energy bull that people don't support. So then she can say, well, I am fighting climate change. I'm reducing inflation. I'm doing all these things. No, you're causing all of the issues, and you just are titling bills in a way that stupid, low-informed voters are going to be tricked by. It's a cynical ploy. But this is what people actually believe. They think that she's accomplished. She was a bad DA. She was a bad prosecutor in San Francisco. She was a bad attorney general. She's been a bad vice president. She was a bad senator. She's a bad vice president. And she's going to be a bad president if she's elected. I don't know where people look at her and think that this person is equipped for the job. You could say similar things about Donald Trump. I know. People will. They'll say, Donald Trump's not equipped for the job. Donald Trump this, Donald Trump that. Look at his record. Look at his time as president of the United States objectively. Don't look at him. Don't look at the things that he says. Don't look at him as a personality. Look at his administration and what they did. It is so much better than the Joe Biden administration and what they have accomplished in 3 years. There's not a comparison. And yet people are going to vote for this woman, and that is scary. It says a lot. I see these videos all the time, and I understand you could make the reverse video of what I'm about to describe with Donald Trump supporters. I understand that. But when you go up to people on the street and you ask them, what has Kamala Harris accomplished as vice president that you enjoy? They have no answer. Most people don't know politics. Most people don't know what the vice president does because essentially the vice president is useless. They don't do much. But the fact is, Kamala Harris has done nothing as vice president that is useful or good. Nothing. Zero accomplishments on that front. The same cannot be said of Donald Trump when he was president. The Joe Biden administration is an abject failure. They have failed on foreign policy. They failed on the economy. The two biggest things that the president has control over, foreign policy and the economy. The two biggest failures of the Joe Biden administration. Excuse me. And she is running away from that record. The border, she's trying to pretend as though she's tough on the border. The worst illegal immigration influx in my lifetime is happening currently under her administration, and she's running as a border hawk. She's running as pro-border wall. It's nonsense. She has nothing. She has nothing else, which is why everything out of her mouth is stupid drivel about forward, not back, up, not down, left, not right, whatever the case may be. She says nothing of importance. And that could actually win her the presidency. It's a scary thought. ABC, they were the hosts of this presidential debate. They should be embarrassed with their debate coverage. It was the most poorly moderated debate I think I have ever watched. The hosts, the moderators, if you will, they fact-checked Donald Trump 4 times in real time. 4 times. They jumped in there and felt the need to insert themselves in the conversation. They gave Kamala Harris 0 fact checks. I know for a fact Kamala Harris lied at least a few times on the stage. She brought up Charlottesville. No fact check. Charlottesville, the fine people on both sides. The biggest political lie told probably in the last 8 or 9 years is this Charlottesville lie that Donald Trump said that there were fine people on both sides, and he was referring to the neo-Nazis and white supremacists. This is the biggest lie in politics. If you believe this, stop what you're doing. Pause the podcast. Go pull up a clip of what Donald Trump said when he said that. It's not going to be exactly the quote, but this is almost verbatim. I promise you. He said, they said, there are fine people on both sides. The immediate next sentence, he says, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and white supremacists who should be condemned entirely. That is the next sentence of what he's saying. He says, there are fine people on both sides, not talking about the white supremacists and the neo-Nazis. Literally 2 sentences connected to each other. They clip it, and they say, he was calling the white supremacists and the neo-Nazis very fine people. It's not true. When he's talking about the fine people argument, he's talking about there were people out there. The whole thing in Charlottesville was about taking down a statue of Christopher Columbus. And there were people out there who were protesting the removal of the statue, people out there who were protesting for its removal. You had these 2 groups of people. He was talking about people on that side of the debate. He said there are very fine people on both sides of whether or not a statue of Christopher Columbus should be taken down or not. There are fine people on both sides of that debate. By the way, I wrote an article for the St. Louis Post saying it's a mistake to take down a statue of Christopher Columbus. It's a mistake. So I know what side of that I'm on. But people have taken this and they have lied to you. Joe Biden started his presidential campaign by saying he wanted to run for president of the United States based on the Charlottesville lie. That's what he said. He said, I want to run because Donald Trump called white supremacists very fine people. That was the start of his presidential campaign, was a lie. Now, Kamala Harris during the debate brings it up. She's not fact-checked. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is fact-checked 4 times in real time. One of which is about the Haitians they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, and he brings that up, and they said, well, we talked to the city manager. The city manager said no. Okay, well, what about there are videos now of residents of Ohio saying that their pets have gone missing. I don't know if it's true, but if I was a city manager of Ohio, I would say it's not. Oh, no, we have no confirmed reports of that. They felt the need to fact-check him on this. Why? Who cares? Because there are people in Ohio, there's a couple of videos going out. There's a 30, possibly 40-something-year-old black man who's up in the city council talking about the Haitian immigrants. And he is saying, you guys sit up there in your suits. You don't understand what's going on out here. This is ridiculous. There's a video of a woman who is talking about feeling unsafe in her own town because a bunch of these Haitian immigrants do not respect the laws of Springfield, Ohio. There's a video going around. It's actually... Well, we'll get into that later. It doesn't matter. But the point is, the moderators did not fact-check Kamala Harris 1 time, but they fact-checked Donald Trump 4 times. They did not ask Kamala Harris follow-up questions, I believe, in any instance. Yet they did to Donald Trump 4 to 6 times, somewhere in there, where they asked him a question, he gave an answer, and then they pushed him and said, no, hold on, what about this, what about that, blah, 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 blah. 4 to 6 times they did that during the debate. Never was Kamala Harris asked a follow-up answer. They said to her, Kamala Harris, Vice President, Madam Vice President, we realize that inflation is absolutely not your fault at all, but what would you do to fix this inflation you definitely didn't cause? And Kamala Harris said, well, I was born in a middle-class family, and that's what I have to say about that. And they said, oh, what an answer. Donald Trump, where's the follow-up there? You asked her a question about inflation. She gave you no answer about what she would do to combat inflation. No follow-up. Yet Donald Trump, anytime he gave a non-answer answer, which is a debate tactic that many people do, they're like, no, we didn't. What about, hold on, sir, gentlemen, you didn't answer the question. Why don't you answer the question we asked you instead of whatever it is you want to talk about? Why don't you answer the question? Meanwhile, Kamala Harris can talk about her middle-class upbringing. Oh, my middle-class mother, blah, blah, blah. I was raised in a Marxist socialist household. They sent me to work in the fields. No, none of this happened. It's silly. Her parents were both, I think they were both PhDs, and both of them pretty well off. So she was raised in a very upper middle to just upper class household in Canada. And no, she was not a struggling middle class person. This is just a falsity. Anyway, the entire thing is, it was Donald Trump 1-on-3. He is fighting 3 people in this debate. ABC, again, should just be embarrassed. And they won't be, but they should be. And it was a very poor performance. The contrast, you get someone like Jake Tapper up there. Jake Tapper was great. Jake Tapper didn't feel the need to fact check. He understood his assignment, which is my job is to try and keep the time equal between both candidates, ask the question, and shut the hell up. That's the job of a moderator. It is the job of what he should do. I remember there have been some people who have done an incredibly good job about this. I thought Jake Tapper did a great job in the last debate. Lester Holt always springs to mind. Lester Holt, when he moderated, he was good because, again, he tried to take his bias out of it and actually perform his role, which was the moderator. It's not the personal bodyguard of Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party. It is his job to moderate a debate between the two candidates, and he did a good job. ABC, terrible job. Never go back there. If you're a Republican, don't ever agree. Never agree again to sign up for an ABC debate. I actually heard this it was from Ben Shapiro. Apparently this is a Jewish way that they choose judge and jury for things, or an ancient sort of tribal thing. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Basically, two people, if you're going to have a court case, one person gets to pick a moderator, one person gets to pick their moderator, then the two people they pick have to come together on a compromise for a third person. I think that's a brilliant way to do any of these debates. One person picks the moderator of their choice, one person picks a moderator of their choice. The two moderators come together and they pick a third person. That's a great idea. I don't know why that's not the way that we do debates all the time. I think it's a great idea. Obviously, the Jewish people have that correct. That is a fantastic way to pick judges or juries, whatever the case may be. So if you're a Republican, don't go back to ABC. It's not worth it. Don't do it. Unless you can get your own moderators and ABC will just host the debate, don't do it. It's embarrassing and bad, and didn't help Donald Trump and or Kamala Harris really to have those people out there. Because even if Kamala Harris did incredibly well, it gives Donald Trump an out to say, well, it was 1-on-3, so we're not going to count that one. It's easy to just do that. And so anyway, doesn't matter. Let's go on to topic 2. I was kind of touching on this earlier, but because it's become a big meme going around, I think we should talk about it a little bit. We're going to talk about the Haitian immigrant population in Ohio. This is always a tricky subject because there are going to be people out there who just assume when you have criticisms of immigration that it is rooted in xenophobia or racism or Islamophobia, some such case, and it's just silly nonsense. We just ignore those people because those people are not serious people. We're going to talk about this because it's a serious issue that requires serious scrutiny. There is a town in Ohio called Springfield. It is a town of 59,000 residents. Well, in the past 4 years now, in the past 4 years, there have been 15,000 people imported from Haiti into this town. So you're talking about a 25% increase in the size of the town in 4 years from one country, Haiti. The governor of Ohio has said that they are going to have to request millions of dollars for the resources that have increased in Springfield. This includes healthcare costs for migrants, as well as schooling increased costs for migrants and law enforcement increased costs for migrants. It's a big deal to say, okay, let's actually go back here before we say this. Immigration is a very complex issue. People who pretend it's not on either side are mistaken or lying. If you say that we should have open borders, you're a fool. You're a fool who does not understand the nature of the world or how our government works or what our resources would do if we just allowed everyone who wants to come to the United States to come to the United States. Immigration is a drain. It is not a net positive. It is a net drain on our resources. Immigrants contribute a large part to the economy, but immigrants also take a large portion of resources in this economy. I will explain further. On top of that, mass migration, done quickly over a short period of time, leads to chaos. This is what's happened in Europe. and it is what's happening in Springfield, Ohio. When you have a group of people who are going to come to a country, a new country, it is fine. It's good to have immigration. Immigration is a good in when it is done correctly. And what do I mean by that? If you are importing skilled work from across the world to contribute to your economy and not take the benefits of your system, this is a good for your country. You are taking the most highly skilled, the most highly motivated, you are contributing to your GDP, and you are not draining the taxes of citizens in America. This is great. This is good. This is what has made America a place that people want to go because innovation is done here. The reason why America has done a good job with immigration is because, one, we have oceans that has separated large chunks of the world from us. So people do not come here in numbers like they do in Europe because it is harder to get here. And what that means is because our numbers are smaller, because they're not smaller in absolute terms, but because we have a larger country, we allow people to, when they come to this country, they are forced to assimilate because they are not able to just live in communities of people from their country. They are forced to assimilate, which is a good thing. Assimilating into the American culture is a good thing. So you come here from a different country, you are going to be surrounded by people who are typically not from your country. And this means you are going to need to do things like learn how to speak English. You are going to need to you're going to need to work a job. You can't just live in a community that only works amongst itself, which is what happens in France, for example, where there are entire sections of France, cities in France that are completely dominated by a culture that does not look French. If you walk down there, you might as well be walking among the streets of Syria than you are in Paris. It doesn't feel like France. It doesn't look like France. The people don't speak French. They have no business. They do not want to assimilate. They have no desire to assimilate. America's done that very well. We have assimilated cultures here. You had large-scale immigration from Europe throughout the 20th century. You had the Irish, you had the Italians come over, you had all these people. And they typically, when they came over, they were treated poorly. The Irish immigrants were treated poorly. The Italian immigrants were treated poorly. The German immigrants were treated poorly. And at first, they established little pockets of themselves. So you look at a place like New York that has a Little Italy. Why does it have a Little Italy? Because we took so many Italian immigrants in that they formed their own community within New York. Now, over the course of time, those Italians have Americanized. They have become American. You can look at some Italian from New York, and you wouldn't say he is fundamentally different than someone from Ohio, for example, from Springfield, Ohio. Now, we did this over time. This didn't happen over 4 years. It happened over time. And also, it was able to happen because the European culture, even the Italian culture, the French culture, the Irish culture, were not completely opposed to the Western United States culture at the time. They're different. They're obviously different. The food's a little different. The way that they interact might be a little different. But the religion's the same. The Western values, meaning values based on a Judeo-Christian understanding, the same. What you're looking at right now is a problem that they've had in Europe, but it's happening in Springfield, Ohio. And it is that we took entirely too many Haitians. We put them in one place. They have no desire to assimilate. They're able to live in pockets like little Haiti. We don't want a little Haiti in the United States. Haiti's a bad country. I don't know what to tell you. Donald Trump used the term shithole country. He was talking about Haiti. Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. It is also the most unstable country in the Western Hemisphere. It has had nothing but bad luck and trouble since its inception. And that's unfortunate. And there are reasons for that. There's historical reasons for that. I don't care to get into it right now about why Haiti is a messed up country, but they are. And the Haitians, for example, right now, today, there is a guy in Haiti who is known as a cannibal, who is a leader of men in Haiti, who kills people and eats them. This happens in Haiti right now. It's not xenophobic to say that. We have imported a large amount of Haitians into Springfield, Ohio, and you say you're surprised that they do not behave like your American neighbors down the street, even your American neighbors from other countries, your neighbors who have immigrated from Mexico or who have flown across from Europe or from the Middle East, who have assimilated to American culture to an extent. They do not behave like Haitians. They do not. And so there is an issue because I've seen people now standing up in in Springfield, Ohio, and talk about the issues they've had and how unsafe they feel even among these people. And people will say, well, that's because they're black. They're just racist. That's because they're Haitian. They're just xenophobic. No, it's because they do not live like Americans. They do not respect American laws. There's a video going around that started this whole they're eating the dogs or eating the cats thing. There's a video of a Haitian with a dead Canadian goose in his hand. He killed in the park. He's walking with it. He's got it by the neck. Didn't come from Springfield. Came from Canton, maybe? I can't remember. It was a city in Ohio. But they're saying, well, okay, imagine that the guy who took that photo says, no, hold on, that's not the whole story. That's fine. But there are people in Ohio who are saying that the Haitians make them feel unsafe. Crime has gone up in Springfield, Ohio, and we're not allowed to talk about it because apparently people think that it's xenophobic or racist to point out that the Haitians are committing crime. There's a woman who was arrested for eating a cat the other day. That also started this whole rumor. Turns out she's American. She's just a crazy person who was eating a cat in Ohio, and people said it was Haitian voodoo. No, she's just eating a cat. It doesn't mean that because these stories might not be exactly what's going around, that there isn't some legitimacy. Again, there are people who have stood up at the city council and said, my dog went missing. I think the Haitians ate it. I'm not saying that that's true. I'm saying that that's a real person from Springfield who said a real thing. And you can point to the city manager who says, that we've never been able to confirm these reports. Okay, he's not saying no. He's not saying, we totally debunked it. He said unconfirmed. That's the job as a city manager. Your job is to make your city look good. Your city wouldn't look good if you said, the Haitian immigrants we brought to Springfield are eating the dogs and eating the cats. Obviously, he's going to say unconfirmed. The reason why this is an issue is because everyday people, really, people who are on the ground, people who understand things, they look at this problem and they acknowledge that it exists. And they say, how can these people sit up here and tell me that this problem, I just close my eyes and pretend it doesn't exist? Like that there's not a giant problem with importing people who don't live the same way you live and then plopping them down in your neighborhood and just saying, get along. That leads to issues. And I think it's silly for the left to continue down this path. It has led to a gigantic push to the right in Europe. And let's not forget what happened with Brexit, why that's the case. The entire thing of Brexit, the reason why Britain left the European Union is based on mass migration. Let's not forget about all the problems that have happened in France, the rioting, the burning, the looting, all of the problems caused by a massive migration into France of people who do not hold French values. Let's not forget about what happened in Rotterdam or in Germany when on New Year's Eve a few years ago, the mass rape of German women by immigrants from the Middle East. These are things that are happening that have spurred such a strong backlash against leftism that you have got a populism rising on the right throughout Europe, which hasn't happened since World War II. Think about that for a moment. The issue, the elites, the European Union, the Democratic Party are lying to you and saying that immigration is just always a positive, always. It's not. You cannot take in a bunch of people who do not hold your values true. They will use liberalism against itself. This is what the Islamists do very well. They use democracy, they use liberalism against itself to further their agenda. that I'm not saying that with the Haitians. I'm just saying there's already people out there who do this very well. And what I mean by that is they will use the values taught in Western liberalism, the values of tolerance, the values of acceptance, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, these things that they actually don't believe in. The people who will use this against themselves, they don't believe in those things, but they know you believe in those things. And because you believe in those things, they will play on the fact that you believe in them to get what they want. Because if they were in charge, there would not be freedom of religion. There would not be freedom of speech. There would not be a right to apostasy. These things wouldn't exist. But they know you believe in them, and they can use you to further their agenda because you are a useful idiot. And that is what is happening right now. You have to pretend. You have to close your eyes, and you have to pretend that you don't see the problem. Because if you see the problem, then you're a bigot, you're a xenophobe, you're a racist. And if you don't see the problem, well, then turns out, in a decade, oops, seems it was a mistake, too late for you. Anyway, we are, let's real quick. I was going to leave, but I want to just say one thing. The state of the presidential race it boggles my mind that it's going to be a toss-up. It always winds up being a toss-up. That's just the way it is. No one knows. And then at the last second, we get a winner. This is not going to be a runaway for either candidate. The other person on either side of the aisle, whether you're talking about Harris, whether you're talking about Trump, is the most beatable person you could possibly imagine. These people do not deserve this spot. I have said on this podcast many times, I'm not going to defend Donald Trump because I told you I'm voting for him. Okay, so get off me. If you're saying, oh, Trump is great, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to hear it. Okay, I know. I'm going to vote for Donald Trump over Kamala Harris. But let's be real. Would J.D. Vance have ripped Kamala Harris to shreds if he was on the top of this ticket? Absolutely. He's so much smarter and so much better debater. He would have made her look like an inept third grader. That's what he would have done in this debate. What about Ron DeSantis? Would Ron DeSantis have been better prepared for this debate? Yes, he would have been a better choice. I don't care that people, whatever, you say, oh, he doesn't have the personality. People will vote for him. They would, because he is able to display his competence. Again, I don't care about his campaign. I don't care what happened. My point is, Republicans, please let this be the last time. Do not nominate the person who is just a blunderbuss, who is going to just spray a scatter shot at his opponents and hope some things hit. Get us somebody who can be a scalpel, be a precision instrument, and that person can win elections. Donald Trump is making this a toss-up election. It should be a runaway. Kamala Harris is the worst. No one liked her. She was a historically bad vice president, historically unpopular vice president. She couldn't get to 1% in a national poll during the 2020 presidential primary. No one likes this woman. It's all fake. She is so beatable. Donald Trump can beat her, but he can also lose to her. And let's just learn from this. The state of this race should say to Republicans, Donald Trump, thank you for your service. Go away. I'm going to vote for him. I hope he's a great president. I hope he wins. Please let this be a lesson. Never again should we be in this position where we're nominating people who are just so polarizing and so divisive they could lose. They can lose what should be a landslide victory. Republicans, after Donald Trump was shot in the ear, they should have run away with this. After Joe Biden imploded, they should be running away. Kamala Harris was not elected. She was not put in this position by the voters. She was foisted on them by the Democratic elite. She is so beatable. Go beat her. Just go do it. Get it done. I don't understand what the problem is. You should have crushed her at that debate. You should have taken it. You should have gone, just crushed her at that debate. It should have been that easy. And he can't. Anyway, Yeah, we're ending on a downer note here. I don't like it. We're gonna put something. We're gonna do an end credit scene to really bring this vibe back up, so everyone goes into the something like the Avengers. You know, we're gonna put in the end credit scene just to bring the mood back up when you leave the theater. But for now, we are gonna leave it there for the week. As always, questions, comments, concerns, leave them. The YouTube place is the best place for comments for me to see them. I respond basically to everything that people put up on YouTube or Facebook. So anytime, just shoot me a question, comment, like, share, subscribe. Do all the things. You know what to do. You people know what to do. You're smart guys out there. Anyway, I'm going to catch you guys next Friday.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats.